and welcome back to the Second and Two podcast. I'm your host, TB. Got my co-host and producer extraordinaire joining me today, my guy, Jody. What's up, Joe?
What's good, bro? You good to be back from your weeks? I don't even know if that might have been last week, huh? I'm a little behind on times.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. I'm super tired because this is the first week back of school.
Mm.
So that
I was gonna
midweek.
flip it real quick and be like, "Oh, you're back in school now."
Yeah. So I'm a little tired right now, to be honest. It's the middle of the week and the first week back, and it's like, oh wow, back to work after basically what amounted to not exactly 2 weeks
2 weeks.
off, but like 2 weeks of not being in the classroom teaching kids every day. Yeah, your body kind of 2 weeks away. You're kind of not it, dude. It's teaching is almost like akin to like training, bro. Your body gets used to it and you do it every day. But then when you don't do it every day and then you have to come back and do it, you're like, whoa. I'm kind of tired of I'm kind of tired. My body's like not used to dealing with these kids every day right now. So I'm a little tired. I mean, it didn't help that I stayed up till like 1 a.m. last night watching the Lakers try and win this playing game against the Timberwolves.
I mean,
in
they
overtime.
did win.
They did win.
They did win.
They tried to lose is what they tried to do, but they did actually win. So that helped. Lake show, but I'm excited to get back in this grind of the draft. During spring break last week, I was really grinding tape on these safeties, who we're going to be talking about today. And that was a grind. I mean, safety tape, there's certain positions that are, I guess you would say, more fun to watch. Like I think receiver. Joe, you've been finding this. Yeah. Right. Receiver, I would say quarterback,
would be fun.
Running back, some of the edge rusher.
Yeah.
Some of the ones that are not as fun to watch, O-line.
Oh, easily.
Safety. I would say even
those are different reasons.
But
like O-line, you could
completely
say
different.
Like you're looking at technical stuff where it's like, oh, they had that combo to the backer. Oh, they have this guy pulling. Like that's all scheme stuff. But like safety, there's literally the film is just pretty much non-existent unless you got the all 22 where you're looking from behind.
You have to really find film. You have to be resourceful. Maybe even have to like know some people who already have like real film, not just like highlight stuff. And so it can get both tedious and I don't know. Yeah, just difficult. But I will say it is fun. The safeties tell you a lot about like what teams are doing schematically. So that part for me as a coach is kind of fun watching safeties because I can be like, oh, like this week we watched some of the guys we played at like Texas A&M, Alabama, Florida State. So like you can kind of watch their tape and get a pretty good idea of like, Florida State was running a lot of one high this year or like whatever, So you can kind of get.
I was going to ask you too, being who you are, just like, because there's some dudes I was like, okay, your guy Brian Branch, the dude you like, right? I saw him and I was like, this guy looks tiny compared to everyone else, right? So it was like, I was gonna ask you first the difference between free and strong safety, right? And then it was like schematically, like if they were running a bunch of nickel or something with this dude out there, because he was always looking like he was a backer, but he was always guarding someone. You know what I mean? I don't know if that plays out.
Okay. So, good questions. Number one, I think if you went to football 20 years ago, there was a real delineation between strong safety and free safety. And like your traditional, because a lot of teams were running a lot more one high safety looks. And by one high, we mean like there's one safety in the middle of the field in a vertical. And so you're playing some form of cover one or cover three where there's one safety in the middle of the field. And that would be your free safety, literally free because he's the guy who's free. He has no gap. He's the one high defender. Yeah, he's playing his zone, right? And then your strong safety is your guy who generally would roll down into the box on the
Yeah.
strong side,
So that
right?
was
And
our guy
so
Palomalu to make things easier, right?
yeah, and actually Palomalu was good enough. He could kind of get away with playing both. He was nasty. That's what made him so unique.
Yeah.
Football nowadays has predicated that you can't really get by with like a true free and strong safety anymore. Your guys who were strong safeties 20 years ago basically play linebacker now.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if you remember, there's a couple good examples of these kind of guys. About 5 years ago, that's kind of where this transition, probably about somewhere around 2015 to
Like the Legion of
2016.
Boom era, like around there.
Yeah, where this transition started happening. Um, do you remember Mark Barron or
Mm,
Deion Buchanan?
mm-mm.
Both those guys were college safeties that once they were in the NFL, it became pretty apparent pretty quickly they couldn't play safety in the NFL, but they became really productive linebackers. Like Mark Barron
Okay.
played linebacker for a few years with the Rams after the Buccaneers had tried to make him a safety. And
Uh-huh.
then Deion Buchanan was drafted by the Cardinals and was a safety for a second and became a linebacker for them. And so some of those
Gotcha.
dudes end up becoming where they were a liability in coverage at safety. They're an absolute gem to have in coverage at linebacker. You
Gotcha.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like their speed is real at linebacker where it was not good enough at safety. And if you're physical, now that's the thing, you still got to be physical enough, but that's
Yeah.
where that strong safety comes in. So nowadays, it's really hard to live in one high looks all the time. The quarterbacks are too good.
Uh-huh.
Like if you just sit in one high, cover three or cover one, they're too good, dude. They're too good. You can't do that. Like you literally can't. You will get picked apart. You will get
Uh-huh.
torched all day long if you just sit in one high. So you have to be able to play too high. And most of the time, your traditional old school strong safety, they're not good enough to play true like too high.
Yeah.
So nowadays, your safeties have to kind of be. It's really not fair. The position is much harder because you kind of have to be able to do it all. You
Yeah.
have to be able to play a half or a quarter in a too high look, but be able to play because then if you want to get to your one high looks, you don't want an offense to know like who's rolling and who's coming down because you try not to show that you're going to
Yeah,
be in one
yeah.
high.
Gotta hide
You
the
try and show
cards.
two high safety all the time. Like in our defense, even in high school, everything is a too high shell to start
Uh-huh.
and then rolls into one high if that's what we're going to get
Okay.
into. And you don't want a team to know like who's always going to be the guy who's going to come down, who's going to be the guy who rolls high if you're going to get into a one high look. So
Yeah.
basically, all your guys have to be able to kind of do everything now. You got to be able to play one high. You got to be able to roll down and play in like a hook to curl or play man on the slot or be able to play cover two or be able to play quarters. You kind of have to be able to do it all. And that versatility is like something that's extremely valuable. So to answer your question, strong and free, those things nowadays are
It's just
less.
safety. It's
It's
all
less
ran together.
pretty much. I mean, I think standard is nowadays you kind of got to do it all if you really want to be an NFL safety. Now, that's
Gotcha.
not to say there's certain guys who don't specialize or do certain things better than others. You know
Uh-huh.
what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that still exists, but most guys can still at least be competent at the other things even if they're really good at the one thing. Right?
Okay.
Like
I got yeah, yeah. No, it makes
you'll
sense.
see. I think we'll see as we're watching some of these guys. And I'm sure you are. That's probably part of why you asked the question. Some of
Yeah.
these guys are better at certain things, and relate. And with Brian Branch, I know he's our first guy,
Uh-huh.
so I'll kind of save my answer to your question for when we
Okay,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
him in a second here. But I think that's probably a pretty good segue into what we're talking about today, which is the safety class. Let me pull
Yeah,
this
yeah.
up
I
here.
had to keep you on your toes real quick because that's one thing I've always wondered just in general, right? Like the difference between the two. But
Yeah,
then I feel like after watching the film on these guys, it was like you notice the tendencies more often with between like different styles, you know? So
yeah.
that's why I had to bring it up.
That's a honestly a great question because I think it's like I said, it's something that um, you know, 20 years ago I think was a real thing, and nowadays it's not as realistic, right? Because it's just hard to survive that way. So quarterback play is just so much better now that
Yeah,
you can't get away with that. But let's get into it, man.
for
Um,
sure.
Got
So the
Brian
first guy,
Branch.
yeah, as we mentioned multiple times before we even kicked off the slideshow, we have Brian Branch out of Alabama. 6 foot 190. As I said, he looked like he was a little smaller compared to everyone else out there. He
Mhm.
played for 3 years. He played 39 games in those 3 years, 177 total tackles, pass breakups of 24. Yeah, I almost got thrown off by that abbreviation
Hmm.
right there. It's been a while. We had 4 picks, completion percentage of 52% when thrown his way, and then allowed seven touchdowns.
Yeah, so you asked me a question earlier about Brian Branch in terms of looked like he was playing a lot more in the box or even over the slot. And so a lot of people have talked about him as possibly being more of a nickel guy than a true
Hmm.
safety at the next level. And I definitely could see that because that's Alabama. He was very successful in that role when he played it at Alabama.
Yeah,
Um, so I could definitely see him being drafted specifically for that role. So even teams that have two really good safeties may still love this guy enough to and value, that nickel spot is so valuable now that, he could still be someone who brings you real value at the position that even if you have two good safeties, you still draft him to go shore up your nickel spot. And so that certainly makes him a guy
yeah, I
who's,
feel it.
it makes him very valuable because he can play multiple positions
Yeah,
when you're looking at it that way. So, from the standpoint of like what makes Brian Branch stand out, I thought the very first thing and what allows him to be very good in that nickel position is he's pretty smooth for a safety. Generally, when you're looking at defensive backs, your smoother, more fluid guys play corner more often just because those guys have to turn and run so much more. So, like the guys with the better hips are generally more often playing corner. That's not
yeah,
like exclusive, but that's a generality.
that makes sense.
And so that's what makes it hard. That's why people love the long corners because there's so few like really truly long guys who are still that fluid. Most of those longer guys end up playing safety because they're not as fluid. So
Uh
like
huh.
that's why people love those big corners because there's just not a lot of them that exist, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
no doubt.
in the case of Brian Branch, though, he is a little bit undersized. He's a little bit smaller than some of these guys, but he makes up for it in the fact that he is so smooth. Like he doesn't lose speed in and out of his breaks or when he flips his hips. His arms and feet are just like always in sync. He never gets outside of his body. Like you never see him take like a huge step back to go forward. His
Yeah,
feet, his
I feel
footwork,
you.
it's always small and quick. And so that's something that, when we watch his film, I love about him. So here you go. Some good examples coming right here. Um, this is him playing man coverage over the slot, and he knows he's getting the wheel route right here. So we're going to see how he plays this, getting over the top to play the wheel. So he flips his hips and then he's able to turn back and find the ball. That's
Yeah.
just smooth stuff right there. Makes the play on the interception. Love to see a safety who can flip his hips that way. Even though he flips the wrong way early, and then he's able to get up and he kind of floats. So he like floats in the air to go make
Yeah.
that play. It's really athletic. Here he is again in the slot, covering the slot man to man. I mean, this is why people are talking about him as a nickel guy because that's rare for a safety to be able to play man on the slot that way, break on the route the way he did, and make that play. That's a guy who can truly, legitimately match up with slot receivers in the NFL, and
Uh-huh.
that's where people have talked about his viability as, a nickel corner.
Yeah,
And
that
I,
was some things I wrote down. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I mentioned it briefly. I said like on here it says nickel question mark, and I was like
yeah,
corner question mark, just because like the size mainly, just like he's a little bit smaller. But yeah, I mean, I seen the same thing too.
yeah, and it's very possible that that's where he ends up playing, just depending on who drafts him. Because I think he's good enough to play safety. And I kind of show some more things here that maybe will help with that. His acceleration is another strength that really shows up. He has the gift of just being able to get to top speed right away, right? I mean, we've talked about this
Yeah,
many times with the receivers, the running backs, the difference between speed and acceleration. And he certainly has that acceleration. Shows up specifically in some of his downhill breaks or when he
Yeah.
slow pedals, like he plays that catch technique, and then a guy tries to run by him and he has to flip and run quickly. There's a play specifically that I'm thinking of here against Ole Miss that's going to show up on this tape. This is against, I believe, Utah State. So here he is playing man coverage on the slot. Again, that nickel position that you talked about, Joe.
Uh-huh.
Again, see how smooth he is, and then the ability to run top speed and get to that top shoulder. Now here he is playing. This is a huge play against Ole Miss this year. Alabama was winning the game by a possession. Ole Miss, with I think 30-ish, 20 seconds on the clock, they have 4th and 16 in the red zone. They have to get to at least the 4-yard line, but really they got to score. He's playing man coverage on one of their best receivers in the slot right here. And he's going to play what we call catch technique. He's not going to move his feet, right? He's not going to back up, I should say. He's going to kind of
Come
pop
in.
his feet. Yeah. And so generally you're playing that catch technique from about the 15 yards in, right? Because there's not a lot of window. Most people think of, all right, the ball is at the 19-yard line or the 19 and a half, whatever, 20. So most people are like, okay, you have to cover 20 yards, right?
Yeah.
But when you really think about it from a defender's perspective, I have to cover 30 yards because the end zone is another 10, right?
True.
And if you catch it behind me in the end zone, that's a touchdown. So I really have 30 yards to cover. So for a guy, what this tells me is this guy is truly a believer in his speed to say, I'm going to play 5 yards away from you and I'm going to bounce my feet with knowing that there are 25 yards of room behind me where you can beat me. That's a 25-yard window. And I'm going to say that I can flip and run as fast as you can run to that end zone, right?
Yeah.
So you watch this. So he doesn't really back up much, and then he's able to run and make this play. And that's a receiver who's likely going to be drafted in this draft, and he makes that play on that guy. See how he's not backing up, bouncing his feet. Now that guy is eating his cushion. He recognizes it's going to be a vertical. I
Yeah.
have to flip and run. Most safeties in this position are getting beat over the middle, and that's a touchdown. I'm just telling you. Most
Uh-huh.
guys against a true NFL level receiver are going to get beat in that situation. You can see this is dire too because they're playing a too high look. They're playing 2-man, right? They're
Yeah.
playing man across the board with 2 high safeties. But in that 2-man, the middle of the
It's
field is
open.
open
Yeah.
if you get beat there. And he trusted his speed, his acceleration, right? He gets step for step and is able to turn his head and find the football and make this play. I'm telling you, dude, that's elite level stuff. That's stuff you don't see every day. Here's another play, downhill. Boom. That acceleration to make that play on the break. That's on a 3rd down, a crucial 3rd down late in the game against Texas, and he makes that play. So I just think that is him playing legitimately from the safety spot. So that's where, again, I think it shows up. He can do a little bit of everything, and that's his last strength for me is that he has this versatility and durability. And what I mean by that is for being a relatively smaller guy, he was really tough in the box. He excelled in all the roles they asked him to perform. He could play, he blitzed, he could play in the box, he could cover the slot like the nickel, he could play true safety from depth, break downhill, burst to the post, whatever you needed him to do. And he was pretty good in run support. So we'll show this last little set of clips here. Here he is. You'll see it's going to show up here against LSU. Blitzing off the edge. Boom. He's able to get the pass break up there. The little batted ball. Really smart, savvy play from him. Again, there's that versatility, blitzing off the slot,
Yeah.
right? Here he is. Now he's playing like that nickel role, right? They're playing with 3 safeties in the game, 1, 2, and then he's down at the nickel. Now we'll see him play there. He's able to break on that, make a huge hit. Great play. Right? Now we see him again. Again, he's in that kind of down safety nickel role. Sees the ball thrown. This is essentially like a run play. He comes up and gives you support. Great play. Here he is truly in the box on a 4th and 2. He's essentially the 3rd linebacker right now, right?
Yeah.
Boom. Makes the play against a big dude. Does not let him push the pile for the 1st down. Huge tackle. Here he is again. Now he's kind of been showing back here. He walks up into it late. Again, is able to make the play on the short throw. So it was very durable when he played in the box. He was versatile. We saw him play from all three levels in these clips, and I think he's a truly different kind of safety in that he gives you all of those abilities in one. It's pretty rare to see a safety who can do all that. Joe, what'd you see from him at the combine?
The combine, he had a 4.58 on his 40 with a 1.56 on the 10 yards. He had a
Okay, see,
34. The
that's
burst.
there you go. So 4.58. He's not he's not a burner. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah,
not extremely fast, but the ability to get to that, on the 10-yard split. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that's pretty good stuff.
He had a 34.5-inch vert. He did 10.5 on the broad,
Yep.
and then did 14 reps on bench.
Yeah, so pretty explosive, tough dude. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you get from that. Not extremely fast, but explosive and tough, and
Mhm.
that's what I would give him, and that's what shows up on film. I mean, quite frankly, like I said, didn't think he was like a burner, but his acceleration was pretty good.
Yeah.
So when you look at, did he have any standout games too before I kind of think about what he's going to be for a team?
Yeah, so his game that I went with was them beating Kansas State 45-20. He had
Last
12
game?
total tackles, 11 solo, a sack, and a pick.
Yeah, that's a there you go. I mean that's perfect. I mean that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean that's what he can do for your defense. He's the kind of guy who can have a sack and a pick in the same game and give you 12 tackles, right?
Yeah,
He's the kind of guy that can play cover 2 for you and play nickel and play man coverage on their slot in the same game. I think he's a day one starter at safety or nickel for that matter for whatever team that drafts him. He's going to excel in zone and man coverages alike, which is pretty true for true safety, or pretty rare, I should say, for a true
yeah,
safety. He's good in run support and he's tough. You know what I mean? I think that's what you see
yeah.
in the film. He reminds me. This is pretty lofty expectations, but he reminds me a lot of a guy that I love to watch on film, and that's Buda Baker for the Cardinals. So Buda plays more traditional safety than he does anything at the NFL level, but he can play a little bit in that slot. They have some other dudes who do that for them, so he doesn't do it very much. He can truly play in the box. He can play high, at the safety position. But here's some stuff that, I think you'll see is reminiscent to what we watched from Brian Branch on film. This is Buda last year against the Vikings. That acceleration,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
To go make that play. Good stuff, right? Here it is. Boom. He just shot out of a cannon. Here he is again. Going to make the tackle and run support, right? He's tough in the box, even though Buda's a kind of undersized guy.
Yeah, I
Similar
was gonna
deal.
say they look similar in size.
There he is again, making the play on the back out of the backfield, playing from inside the box. So I
Talented.
think, yeah. So I think they're similar players in that they're undersized, but great acceleration, just playmakers, can play at all the levels of the defense. So I think similar players may not fill exactly the same role at the NFL level. Again, I think teams may like him more and more at that nickel spot. And so that may be where he's kind of destined to play, but I think he can kind of do it all. Um, another guy kind of reminds me of is Roby Coleman, and who played for the Saints for a good chunk. Or I'm sorry, C.J. Gardner Johnson. That's what I'm thinking of. Played for the Saints for a little bit, then was with the Eagles last year,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
is signed with the Lions in the offseason. So another guy who's played over the slot, but then is also played true safety now. So could do a little bit of everything. I think those are some guys he flashes for me right now. Looks like he's gonna go in the first round based on a lot of mocks, a lot of what people are talking about him. Somewhere between picks 15 and 30. which is a pretty wide range. But that back
Yeah.
end of the first round, I've seen a lot of the Jaguars, the Vikings, the Eagles, and the Commanders for him. Um, the Eagles makes a ton of sense given that they lost the safety in the offseason.
Uh-huh.
Feels like everyone's getting mocked to the Eagles. Like, is it me or do we talk about the Eagles every time with every
No,
position
no,
group?
for real. There's always at
It
least one, right?
well, it's just they have those 2 picks,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's part of it is because they have so many picks. Someone, they're gonna have to draft something. So it
Yeah.
does feel like they and coming off the Super Bowl, they're pretty good. So like you can always get more depth at every position. They don't have like a high need area. They did lose some starters in different spots, but it's just funny. Like the Eagles are gonna take, if you read all these projections, the Eagles are gonna take a running back, a corner, a safety, a tackle who may also be able to play guard,
Yeah.
a linebacker, and an edge rusher. Even though they only have 2 picks, they're going to take 6
Yeah.
players, right? No, but it is funny that the Eagles seem to keep coming up. Any of those teams kind of stand out to you based on the film, Joe?
Yeah, I think the Jaguars is a good one. I know you like that defense a lot.
I
So
do.
that's like a quick fit, just if he's playing nickel, like you already got two good safeties back there.
Yep.
Uh,
I was just going to say, if the Jags were to draft him, I would definitely see him fitting as the nickel with them. I think that would be, and he fits well with the style of defense that they play.
uh,
I could see that being a really good fit. Yes.
and then I would think sneaky the Commanders. I feel like they always have like at least one good, like defensive back. I have like D'Angelo Hall at one point. They had Sean Taylor. Like, there's always
Yeah.
at least a guy. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, you could bring up our dude from T Town,
Yeah. Sua
Tua.
Craven.
Yeah, Cravens. Yeah.
You had Landon Collins at one point. Yeah, they've had some different guys there over the years for sure in that secondary that have been pretty good players. No, I could see that. I think any one of these teams, I think relatively he would fit in with. I love the fit with the Jaguars though.
Uh
That's the
huh.
one. I think I agree with you. That's the one that gets me excited.
No, yeah, I mean, we even talked about Vikings before. How they're just like a tough defense in general, at least from what I remember growing up. So yeah,
Yeah.
another good fit there.
Yeah. Who we got next?
The next guy we're looking at is Sidney Brown out of Illinois. He's another smaller dude. He's 5'10", 211. Sorry, 211 pounds. I don't know why I said 211. That making me sound tinier. Let's see. He played for 4 years, 5 years. But
Yeah, COVID year.
yeah, so 5 years. He played for 51 games in those 5 years. 328 total tackles, 29 pass breakups, 10 interceptions, 54% completions on him, and then 12 touchdowns allowed. The
So
5 years threw me off. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's that COVID year, man. You're seeing it. You're gonna see it for the next couple years. There are gonna be some
Yeah.
dudes who played 5 years. That COVID year is really different. All right, Sidney Brown's a player I absolutely love on film. He's a guy a lot like when we talked about Deuce Vaughn, right, or Byron Young
Uh-huh.
from Tennessee, the edge rusher. Just a guy who I think I like probably more than others for some of the traits that show up. That
Uh-huh.
Illinois defensive secondary goes absolutely crazy when you start thinking about it because Devin Witherspoon is going to
Mhm.
be a top 15 pick and Sidney Brown should be picked by at least the 3rd round if you ask me, and both those dudes are just absolute playmakers.
Uh-huh.
Love them both. I think they're cut from the same cloth. I think that's probably why I love it so much. It makes sense why I like the Illinois defense so much last year
Yeah.
because they just have dudes who are not afraid. And that's Sidney Brown to a T. Like, number one, he's a freaking playmaker, man. Like, he is not afraid of the moment. Numerous big plays for Illinois over the years. Obviously, you saw the guy had 10 interceptions. That means he's getting about 2 a year, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
True.
he had 15 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery. This is the stat I love though. He scored 3 times on defense
Yeah.
and 2 sacks. He just always seemed to find the ball at the exact right moment, and his like defensive highlight, him scoring these touchdowns, like I mean, my first cut ups of him are just him scoring touchdowns, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
here you here you go. This is 2 years ago against Michigan State. They're gonna play a too high look, right? He's kind of showing in the box. You can tell he's getting out at the snap right now to get to
Yeah.
that too high shell. So you can see he's bailing out, finds the football, makes the play, but then has the wherewithal and the juice to go score
Yeah.
after he gets the interception. This was a big play in a game where two teams that were like they're both like 4-4, and that touchdown ended up being a big factor in helping Illinois um, get a win. Here you go against Northwestern. I believe this was this year. Pick six, boom. Now this isn't on the film, but he also had a fumble recovery for a touchdown against Northwestern and another
Yeah.
pick. I don't know if I just spilled the beans on if that was going to be your game.
Yeah, yeah, he balled
Go ahead.
that game.
Go ahead and give us the stats because
So they won
he absolutely
41 to
balled.
3, which sounds crazy. He had 6
Yeah,
total tackles, 4 solos. He had a fumble recovery, 2 picks, and a touchdown.
it 2 touchdowns.
2? Dang,
Yeah,
I missed it.
he
It only
had
showed me one.
his
That
fumble
one
recovery. His
and the
fumble
pick.
recovery was for a touchdown and the pick six. It's crazy, man. This dude went absolutely insane in that game. I don't have the fumble recovery for the touchdown on here, but I do have this play this year against Michigan State. He loved playing against Michigan State, apparently. So this year, this is the very first play of the game, mind you. This is him in the slot. Very first play of the game. Looks like he's beat. Nah, goes and makes the pick. Huge play. You can see, look at the sideline. Look at
Yeah,
the sideline. Like, bro, those are the dudes. That's the dude right there. That you know that guy's a guy when he can make his sideline do that.
yeah,
Um, so I just for that reason, number one, I love Sidney Brown. He's just a playmaker who's not afraid of the moment.
yeah. I
Um,
had he finds the ball well too. That was my good
mhm.
note for him.
He's a ball hawk at safety. That's
Yeah,
what you call a ball hawk for sure. The next thing I noticed is he has a really smooth crossover run, which helps a lot when you're able to disguise and still get to where you need to be, right? So like he can show in the box, but burst out to the middle of the field or the deep half. Really smooth crossover run that allows him to run efficiently while keeping his eyes on the quarterback. So when I crossover run, right, I teach my guys I want to keep that chin on the shoulder, right, so that I'm getting back to my depth, but I can see what's happening in front of me. You see a lot of
yeah.
times guys will do the thing where they turn their head to get
And
back
at that
there,
point, you
and
just
when they do, you don't see what's happening in front of you, right? So
yeah,
you can't make any plays. So he does a good job. He's very smooth that way, which allows him to be dangerous as a guy who can disguise, right? So he can show in the box, get out, and play the vertical area of the field. And that's a unique tool that defensive coordinators will love to use, right? So here he is against Wisconsin, right? Going to be able to give you that crossover run. Boom. See how he's able to keep his eyes on the quarterback and then go
yeah.
make this play right here. Now it's instead of that being a catch for 8 yards, it's a pass breakup. And a dude
And a
who's
torn
apparently
ACL.
injured. Yeah, apparently injured. So
I
here's
didn't
another
see that the
one.
first time. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So here's another one of him getting out. You see how he initially was opening this way, but then turns and crossover runs the other way. And now look, what does that become? Another pick. I mean, he was just so good. That's how he created a lot of turnovers because he's able to disguise. He's so savvy, but has such good movement and combination. Right, that's a dangerous combo, and that's why he was able to create so many turnovers. And then the last thing, he's just tough, dude. Like when he played in the box, which he did a lot in 22, Brown was really tough beating blocks, tackling, blitzing. He's thick enough as a 5'10", 210 pounder. Like he's a thick dude and he doesn't play with fear. So I think that lets him be very versatile. So now you believe it when he's showing in the box because he can actually consistently do that. So here he
Yeah,
is against Indiana. Watch this. Tackle for loss.
yeah,
Just playmaker, man. Here he is against
yeah.
Iowa. coming from the backside,
flowing
running it
over.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah, here he is.
same game.
Yeah. This was a huge play against a guy who we'll talk about later, Sam Laporta. But that was a big 3rd and 15, and he was just tough enough to go make this play through Laporta and cause the pass breakup. And I just love he competes. He's just so competitive and tough. I love that about him. So yeah, I had the fortunate ability to watch him a little bit at the Senior Bowl in person,
Uh-huh.
and he every bit as competitive and tough as you would expect. So I think he's a real guy that I think I value probably more than some of the other talent evaluators going into this draft. I think he's a really good player who's going to show up and be surprisingly good safety at the next level that I don't think people are expecting.
Uh-huh.
What were his numbers at the combine?
Yeah, so he had a 4.47 on his 40 with the 1.51 for the 10 yards. He had a 40.5-inch vert. He did 10.10 on the broad and 23 reps on bench.
Bro,
The guy's a beast when it comes to those stats, bro. That's
like
insane.
I'm just like he's a freak athlete too. That's the
Yeah.
thing. And that's why I think he's an underrated athlete. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know that everyone's giving him credit, but like you look at dude, he has a 40-inch vert with a 10-10 broad and runs a 4.47 with a 1.5 10-yard, right? Like
Yeah.
he may not be everyone's ideal size or and he's not like the fastest guy. 4.47 isn't like a burning, but his tape says he's a baller and he's an explosive athlete. You got to give him credit for
Yeah.
that. He may be the best true safety in the draft. If Brian Branch is kind of the Swiss Army knife, really more nickel guy, people are looking
Uh-huh.
at him that way. Sidney Brown then would be the best true safety. And I would not, he has like an it factor, I think, that makes him a good NFL player. Don't be surprised if he starts right away. Like if he gets drafted and teams are like, oh, okay, we drafted him in the 3rd round, may take a year or two. Don't be
Yeah.
shocked if he's like game 1, week 1, he's the starter. Another guy who just absolutely came to mind watching this was from the 49ers. Similar kind of build makeup. I believe he was a 3rd round pick too and started pretty quickly for the 49ers. And that was Talanoa Hufanga, who had a great year last year playing for the 49ers. Here he is in week 1 against the Bears. Absolutely wrecked that game for the Bears, by the way. Even though the Bears ended up winning, he was awesome defensively. So here he is. He kind of showing in the box and then getting out. Boom, makes the pick, right? Has a little juice afterwards, like my
Got
guy
the
Sidney
same
Brown.
hair.
Similar hair and build, kind of. He's a little bit bigger than Sidney Brown, but similar deal where he was able to kind of show crossover run, get out, playmaker, just just a little different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Here he is in the box now, right? Showing that, and then he's able to go make this play. Look at that. Yeah, ball
Similar
player.
deal with the
Yeah,
ankle snag.
yeah. I think they're very similar players, and Hufanga surprised a lot of people. Outplayed his, at least this last year, outplayed where he was drafted. I think Sidney Brown could be very similar.
Uh-huh.
See a lot of projections for him in the 3rd round. That's pretty much where consensus has him landing right now. The 49ers are a team, interestingly enough, that I saw connected with him.
Uh-huh.
Um, put him and Hufanga on the field at the same time, and who, Lord knows, you have a dynamic duo. Oh, what do you know? The Eagles are showing back up.
Yeah.
Um, the Rams, Lord, I would be happy. Just needless to say, I would be happy if that happened.
Yeah.
And then the Ravens as a sneaky team that could use another safety, which, man, that would make all the sense in the world. He feels like he fits in their defense so well. I have to say, as much as I'd love to see him with the Rams, the Ravens might be my favorite in the clubhouse to see him go play with,
Uh-huh.
honestly.
Yeah, I feel that. I was
Yeah.
gonna say that just ties back with Ed Reed at one point. Yeah, I mean, just
Yeah, the
yeah,
lineage for sure.
yeah. But I mean, out of the group, I'd say the Niners sounds the most interesting, right? Similar dudes on both sides of the field. Pretty
Hmm.
crazy. Rams kind of make sense. Not saying like anything. You know what I mean, but like they
The
lost Jalen
Rams love to
Ramsey. They're gonna need.
draft.
Yeah,
They love to draft safeties in those middle rounds, the third, fourth, fifth round. So it makes a lot of sense. Like I could certainly see them taking him. He fits their prototype.
and then Eagles, of course. I mean, they're everywhere. The picks for days, apparently.
Can't get away from him. Can't get away.
But yeah,
Um,
so next guy we're looking at straight out of Florida State, looking at Jamie Robinson. He sits at 5'11", 191. Played for 4 years. 2 of those were with South Carolina. He has 47 games in the 4 years, total of 316 tackles, 21 pass breakups. Let's see, 7 interceptions, 5 touchdowns allowed, with 56% completion percentage on them.
yeah. So Jamie Robinson, interesting story with him being kind of, a transfer guy. Something you're seeing obviously more often that we've noticed this year. 2
Transfer
years at South
portal.
Carolina. Yeah. 2 years at Florida State. Another guy I had the opportunity to see at the Senior Bowl. I'll tell you, it's interesting. He's that inch taller and about 20 pounds lighter than Sidney Brown. But man, when they stand together, you wouldn't know it. Jamie Robinson's thick, man. Like he's got that thick lower
The
half, that
legs.
lower body,
Yeah.
those thick legs, like those thick daddy legs. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That definitely shows up. It's noticeable in person, and that's part of why I think the first thing you notice about him on his film is his physicality. When he hits you, you know it. He
Yeah.
packs a punch every time he hits a ball carrier or presses a block. He's like what you would call that kind of old school, like strong safety. He has a little bit, I think, more mobility to maybe play in that deep half or middle of the field, but he loves playing around the box. I'll tell you that. So
Yeah.
here you
Always
go.
flying around the
Here's
field.
here's a great clip of it. This will let you know exactly what we're talking about. Wait for it. Oh, there he is. Poof. Shows up late from out of the picture to in the picture at the line of scrimmage, showing up just like a rocket. Bop, 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 bop.
Yeah.
Boom. Here he is coming up on run support, stops a guy from getting a first down, puts that shoulder down, bangs that dude. Whack. Love it. Love the physicality from him. You see that? Man, he took a running back, sent him backwards. Now he's playing in the box, right? He's going to match up with a running back. Boom. Little Texas angle route. Nope, not today. A lot of dudes get caught up with that. He's like, nah, I'll make that tackle, fourth down. Let him know. So yeah, when he hits you, you already know what time it is. He's a hard hitting
Yeah.
safety. He's kind of that old school dude that way, and I love that about him. He also, next thing you notice, he plays with great angles. He didn't run as well at the combine. He ran a 4.59. That's correct, right, Joe?
Yeah, yeah, he had a 158 on the 10 yards too.
Okay. What were his other numbers now that we're here?
Let's say 33.5-inch vert, 9.8 on the broad with 23 reps on bench.
Yeah, so again, 23 reps on bench doesn't surprise me. No, he's not
Yeah.
quite the explosive athlete that like Sidney Brown is, but tough as nails. Like can tell he
Yeah,
loves the
that's
weight
for sure.
room. 23 reps on bench, that doesn't surprise me. Like, so he may not run as well, but this dude, he plays smart though. He understands like, okay, I'm a 4.59, and he plays with great ankles. So that makes it so he makes so many plays because he takes these great angles and plays under
He takes
control, right?
ankles too.
He does
Not
well. He
really though.
can.
He goes in
He,
with the power, takes the
he
shoulder.
kind of he kind of smokes people up top. Actually,
Yeah, yeah.
here he is. Here he's coming in late. Boom! See that angle he
Gotta hit
takes
the
though, and the
angle
way
and the shoulder, like I
he
said, the power, bro.
yeah he and then he hit him with the put you to sleep
Yeah.
afterwards, right?
So
So
he's
he's
pretty
pretty
good
good
at
at
understanding
understanding
like
like where his fit is right within the framework of a play. Right here, like this is a tough spot to be in because you don't know where
You don't
this
wanna
guy could
run
cut
up
back,
and yeah.
right? And he just keeps tracking, boom, and makes a great play. I think he does that very often, where he just plays with really good angles. Then the last thing is he has pretty good instincts. In terms of just seeing plays before they happen, he's pretty good at that, and that makes him look faster on film, right? So sometimes
Yeah,
he's moving to make a play before it's even there to be made,
true.
and both in run support and in coverage. So there's a couple plays in run support here. We'll start with coverage here. He's on the back end right here, right? And he's breaking right now before that ball is thrown and makes that play. Big time football play. Here he is blitzing off the edge, and they run the little mesh point right here, and we'll get another angle of it in a second. But he does not get faked out by the play action fake, and he's going to go get the sack. And again, not plays with good angles, doesn't let himself get beat there. You see it from the behind angle. See the mesh point? Some dudes would
Yeah.
have folded and ran this way with the back, right? And he doesn't. He doesn't fall for it. He finds the football. Just instinctual, understands, feels it. The quarterback still has it. Here he is. He drifts, puts himself in position to make it, have an interception, right?
Yeah.
Now, is that like oh my gosh, he made this incredible play? No, he was kind of gifted that one.
Yeah.
But like, just look at how his movement mirrors the quarterback, right? He sees he gets in that vision and understands, like, he puts himself in position to receive this gift, right?
Yeah.
Here he is
True.
blitzing from all the way from the second level,
Doesn't get
makes
fooled
that
by the
tackle.
match point again.
Yeah. So he's just really good, whether it's coverage, right? Here it is again, finds the football. Great job feeling when the ball is going to be there. That's a unique skill to have, like feeling the ball coming, be able to make that play on the ball. So whether it's run support or it's coverage, he's very good. Instinctually allows him to make a ton of plays. So, um, in terms of what he can do for a defense, I think he's an undersized safety, but he loves playing around the box. He loves tackling. I think he'll thrive in a system that lets him play closer to the line of scrimmage, right? I think he
Yeah.
is kind of closer to that old school, like, would love to see him playing with a team that runs a little bit more one high stuff that lets him buzz down, play more in the box, closer to the line of scrimmage. Even though he can do some of that other stuff in deep coverage too. But Joe, I was curious too. Were there any stats from him, obviously besides his 23 bench reps, that that blew you away?
Yeah, so his game against Oklahoma, they won 35-32. He had 13 total tackles, 10 solo, 1 sack, and a fumble recovery.
Yeah, ball player, man. I think looking at it, he reminds me a lot of a guy who's bounced around the league a little bit. Played for the Rams, played for the Eagles, played for the Colts more recently, and that's Rodney McLeod. Not sure if you're familiar. But we'll watch a little tape. This is from a couple years ago, Sunday Night Football against the 49ers. You'll see he's back here in the screen, but we'll see him come into the picture on this screenplay, and that's him right there. So he's kind of a smaller guy, but loves to go tackle. Here he is playing closer to the line of scrimmage. Gonna make this play in coverage, gets the pick. Boom. Gonna run it back. But similar deal where smaller guy, but very tough playmaker, thick lower half. And I think very similar kind of players. Rodney McLeod was drafted a little bit later as well. I can't remember. I think it was a fourth round pick, if I'm remembering right, maybe third. And so, which is similarly where Robinson's projected to go right now. See a lot of third round pick grades for him. Some teams that may be interested. He makes sense with the Cowboys,
Uh-huh.
given their system with Dan Quinn. They're a lot more cover three, 400 3 deep base team. Hey, there's the Eagles again. Apparently, the Eagles need a safety. The Browns, Joe, we were complaining that the
Yeah, they
Browns
don't
and
show
the
up.
Dolphins haven't shown up. They are
Yeah.
showing up. The Browns may be a landing spot for this guy. They they lost the safety, John Johnson, in the offseason. So the Browns could be a team ready to go get a guy like that. And then the Bengals, another team that also lost a safety, lost Jesse Bates. And so they may need a safety to kind of help shore up their depth. Any of those stand out as teams that you might like to see the Florida State product on?
Yeah, so I would say the Cowboys, like you said, I mean, they're known to have that like defensive mind, They're from
Mhm.
Dan Quinn. I would say interesting enough, probably the Bengals following them. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like he could go in there and like make some noise quick. You know what I mean? That just feels like a thing they could need. I mean, you had our guy Eli Apple getting clowned on. Obviously, he's more of a corner than a safety, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Browns. I don't know too much about them in general. You know, they got Deshaun Watson. No, I couldn't really tell you. Nick Chubb. That's the team right there.
Yeah, yeah. Um, no, I think I'd love to see him with the Cowboys. I think that'd be a fun matchup for him. They have a safety who's playing pretty well for them right now, Malik Hooker. Wouldn't be bad to get another one there that could fit well into their scheme. So would not mind seeing him there. But relatively speaking, could probably fit in any of these other team schemes as well. We've got another guy here. Who is that?
The next dude we're gonna take a look at is Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M. He's 6'2", 198. So tallest dude we're looking at so far. Played for 3 years. He's got 167 total tackles, 8 pass breakups, only 1 interception. Ooh, his completion percentage on him is a little bit lower than everyone else, 48%, and then 2 touchdowns allowed on him. I think that's also a little bit lower too.
Yeah, he played less games than some of these other guys,
Uh-huh.
so smaller sample size. But yes, so the first thing you talked about and is noticeable with him when you watch him on film, he's the one safety in the group who has that like ideal size and length for an NFL safety. I think that teams would prefer. The rest of these guys are a little bit smaller, a little more undersized. But, standing at 6'2", 32 and an eighth inch arms, Johnson's big, he's rangy, and that's the kind of safety teams love to pick.
Uh-huh.
So you watch him on film, and this is where some of that length shows up. He actually reminds me of a guy I played with in college at Lewis and Clark. Very kind of similar player, like actually wore the same number and everything's kind of weird, but like similar safety, like really long body guy.
Yeah.
The guy I played with was like maybe a little bit thinner, but similar kind of players and the play style too. But you can see here, see his length shows up right here. Boom. Like his ranginess and his length as a bigger player. Here he is on the edge. Boom. Like that's a safety right there. That's an NFL safety. In terms of size and the body that you're looking for, that's it.
Uh-huh.
That's the one. So from that standpoint, he has that. And that's something that, again, we've talked about this before. You either have that or you don't, and he has it. And, the other guys that we've talked about so far don't quite have that. And so that's where I think people fall in love with him is because they can project that he has the traits and that size that project him to being a possibly elite NFL safety. And
That makes sense.
I think the next thing I noticed for him, and I actually saw some places. I generally do evaluations and don't look at how other people are evaluating a guy just because
Yeah.
I don't want it to inform my evaluations.
Uh-huh.
But I actually did happen to look at some other stuff for Antonio Johnson. I just happened to. I actually think I was struggling a little bit with his eval and was
Yeah.
looking for some inspiration and just kind of looking around and after I'd kind of done some stuff and saw what other people thought. I actually saw a couple people talking about his tackling as a weakness.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's why when you were talking about his size, I saw tackling as the next one. And for me, so I faded a lot of these dudes. I told you that before, like
yeah.
before we started talking on or recording, I should say. But yeah, when I saw tackling, you could if people go back and watch, you'll see my face where I was like oh, I
Mhm.
gotta hear what he has to say because I did not see anything good out of that. He wasn't
Yeah,
the guy making the tackle. He was there first, but couldn't finish it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
So I saw that and I started, my initial read on it, I'm watching a lot of his film. He does have a 10% missed tackle rate, which is not great. But what I do like from his film, for instance, the clip we just saw with the size where he just
uh-huh.
put his body on that guy, drove his feet, and put that
Yeah,
guy on his back.
yeah,
There are times where he plays with great form. I think his
Okay.
problem right now is he's not consistent enough. Sometimes he throws the shoulder a little
Yeah,
bit too
all the time.
much. And
My other note says doesn't wrap up and he's
yeah,
weak because he goes with the shoulder and they don't fall. They just bounce.
yeah. Um, the thing I will say though is I think he can clean some of that stuff up and make it a strength. And when he does tackle, he packs a punch. He gets his hands on the ball carrier, right? Like
Yeah, he did
he
force
has
a
a
fumble.
he has a knack for forcing fumbles in the
Yeah, he
process
has
of his
4 on him.
tackles.
Kevin had didn't
He
know.
had 3 this last year, right? So here's a clip of it, and this is again not great form tackling, excuse me, but he gets his hands on the ball and forces the fumble, creates
Oh
the
yeah,
turnover.
I remember now. He poked it out at the end.
Yeah. So like he does have a knack for doing that stuff, and so if he could just clean up the tackling a little bit to the point where he's not throwing so many shoulders like that, I think he can turn that into a strength. If I'm projecting out, like here's another good example of him, making a tackle there with the corner. Here he is against LSU. This is another one where he, again, doesn't quite wrap up, but what does he do? He forces the turnover, right? He creates the fumble. So, from that standpoint, it's a current weakness that I am projecting will become a strength.
Mm,
And this is a projection, right? Due
yeah.
to just what I've seen on film. So, whether that actually happens, we'll see. The last thing, though, that truly shows up is his ability to play some man coverage. Like, there are a few safeties who can legitimately hold up in man coverage with consistency, and his length and fluidity make him a unique matchup. I think he'll be a guy who plays pretty well against tight ends, right? So here you
Okay.
go. Here he is. He's kind of in that nickel role right now, playing over the slot, right? So he's able to flip and turn his hips, and then that
Yeah.
length just deters that guy from being able to make that catch. That's big boy stuff right there. So I do think I like that from him. I don't know that I like him as much as where the projections have him. Like he's a second round projected pick right now,
That's
from
tough.
a lot of people. And I think it's mainly due to that first thing, that size, that body. You can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's ideal stuff. You can't just like create that anywhere. You can't just get that anywhere. So, how did he test at the combine though, Joe?
So he ran a 4.52 in his 40. Let's see, his 10 yards was a 1.57.
Yeah.
31-inch vert, 9.10 on the broad, and so as I said, weak. He couldn't really finish those tackles after throwing the shoulder. Only had 8 reps on the bench.
Hmm. So, I mean, what it comes down to is this guy's pretty tall. He's kind of thick and he's really fast,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, well, we'll see. We'll see if that actually translates. It just, a lot of this stuff is projection, right? Like I said, it's all
Yeah.
projection. He has the size and athleticism to be a versatile NFL safety who can play in the box. He can play some man coverage, capable in zone with his length. Looks like he's going to be a high day 2 pick and probably going to project as a starter.
Wow.
Again, I don't necessarily know if I feel that way watching his film, but he does have
Things
some
you can learn.
things, some fluidity. He does have some things in terms of his size, length, speed, fluidity that you just tough to coach. I mean, those things
Yeah.
you kind of have or you don't, and he has them. He reminds me a little bit of
Your guy
Taylor
Taylor
Rapp
Rapp.
with
Yeah.
the Rams. Now, Taylor Rapp isn't quite as
Big.
tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not as tall, but similar in some of like the things that he does well.
Mhm.
Right. So here's Rapp against the Seahawks and in the Rams' last game this last year. Actually, became his last game with the Rams. So like the tackling, I think those are things that Johnson's going to be able to do at the next level. Right. Here's Rapp in the box. Boom, makes that play. Right. So I think he's a second round projected pick right now. Saw some stuff with the Bills, the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys. Um, I think the Chiefs would be an interesting fit just because They have a couple safeties that you like, but they could use some depth and youth at the position. So it would make sense. The Bengals certainly, we talked about them earlier, losing Jesse Bates, Antonio Johnson, maybe athletically compare to Jesse Bates, and maybe he can do some of the same things. But what did you think, Joe?
I mean, I was just gonna bring up the Bills or the Chiefs. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen their name. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
both made it to the playoffs. So they got later picks, but um, yeah, I don't know. I think the Chiefs. I could agree with you there. You know it kind of a little bit throwback, but our guy Tyrann Mathieu. You know, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why. Just like when I think of safeties, I just think of dudes that were on the team in the past, not necessarily correlating to what defensive the guy they got there now. You know,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah. Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. It's just everything's coming like that to me.
No, no, that's those are your archetypes in your mind. I get it.
Yeah.
All right. So
So
we've got one more guy, correct?
yeah, the last guy we're taking a look at today is Jordan Battle, also out of Alabama. Quick side note, I think. Oh no. For one of the movies, I don't know if it was Gridiron Gang or uh, Coach Carter, but the name reminded me of the movie. But
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Junior Battle, not Jordan
Yes,
Battle. I don't.
yes.
Quick
Coach
dumb
Carter.
moment. Yeah. But yeah, so Jordan Battle out of Alabama. He's 6'1", 209. He played for 4 years. Let's see, 54 games in the 4 years with 245 total tackles, 19 pass breakups, 6 interceptions. Oh, he has a low completion percentage too. It's 47%. And then 3 touchdowns allowed on him, also pretty low.
Yeah. So Jordan Battle, man, he's the first thing you notice when you watch him, he's pretty savvy. I mean, you got to think he played 54 games over 4 years at safety for Nick Saban.
Uh-huh.
And that's got to have like a profound impact on you as a football player. Like he definitely grew over the
Yeah.
course of those 4 years. And it's pretty clear that he's, as experienced and savvy a player can be coming out of college. He's just able to disguise coverage. He makes players look open, take away a quarterback's first read, right? He can do all these things. I found some clips, looking at, for instance, the SEC championship from a couple years ago, right? The
Uh-huh.
year that Georgia beat them in the national championship, but Alabama before that beat them in the SEC championship. So here you go. Disguises coverage, makes a guy look open, is able to break on the ball. We'll get a better look at it from the behind here in a second, and is able to score pick six. So how he's back here,
Yeah.
slow pedaling, right? This looks like it's going to break open. You can see where Stetson Bennett, his
His
line of
eyes
sight.
are. Yeah.
Now, right, that's Brian Branch, who he thinks, okay, he's beating the nickel guy, and then Battle's going to break on it, right? And Stetson Bennett never sees him. I mean, that's just savvy football right there. Great play. All right, here's another one. On the corner route, makes it look open and then undercuts it. Dirty. And he's going to score on this one too. Run the
Poor
quarterback over
quarterback,
as he
yeah.
goes in. Oh, poor Mississippi State quarterback. That was tough. All right. So those are a couple plays that I just thought, man, he's a savvy player. He understands how to like make a guy look open and then come on it late, right?
Uh-huh.
Make a quarterback kind of bait a quarterback into a throw. The next thing you notice with him, I think he has great spatial awareness, underrated quality for a football player, right? It's just like that sense of where you are on the field, where to make your zone drops, where the ball is going based on the flow of the
Yeah,
play, right? He puts himself in position to make a lot of plays because of his ability to understand all of these elements. It allows him to be decisive and make plays out in one-on-one space. So here you go.
I agree.
This is a great example of spatial awareness by Jordan Battle. Here he is right here, covering the guy running out through the flat, through the wheel, tried to throw to Deuce Vaughn. Look at that play. Great spatial awareness of the route and route recognition to be able to kind of fall off and go find Deuce Vaughn. Here he is right here against Auburn. Feels the play, finds it, boom. Oh, great tackle. Great tackle. And that's on Tank Bigsby, our guy who we love, who really is a tank. And he made him look like a like a I don't know, like a little mongoose right there. Bro, that wasn't the tank. That was the mongoose bike right there, bro.
Uh,
All right, here he is up top. Again, he's gonna feel where this player is on the field. Great tackle. Great tackle.
yeah,
Plays with
I
really
wrote
good
that
angles.
down. Yeah, I wrote down he has the best open field tackle out of this group of people that we looked at. That's
Yeah.
part of the reason why I liked him, which we'll get into later.
And then last but not least, downhill breaks. He loves to come downhill on the football. Made a majority of his plays tackling, breaking up passes, intercepting passes on downhill breaks. Very efficient movement here. Uses his short area quickness to make plays. Um, you can see in the film. Here you go. This
Oh,
is going to be
man.
a fun one against Ole Miss. There he is right there. Right. And here's our guy, Brian Branch again. Love to see the both of them popping up when he shows his film. Look at that. Boom. Ooh, stops the guy from getting the first down. Critical third down, stops him. Bow. Gosh, he's like a rocket. Here's another one. Oh, makes the guy look open. Downhill break. Pick six on Will Levis in Kentucky. Oof. Oh, and hits him with the track celly at the end. Yeah, turn off the lights. The party's over. Yes, sir. Love it from Jordan Battle, dude. His downhill breaks are nasty. Um, Joe, let's talk combine numbers, talk stats. Give
Ooh,
me a good game. Give me some combine
I
numbers.
wish
I know
I
you
had
love Jordan
combine
Battle.
numbers, but I think he had like some injuries or something. I don't know
Okay,
that like prevented him from doing it at the combine. And
got
he
it.
like pushed it all back to the pro day.
Okay.
But his standout game I had was against Kansas State, as we saw, where he got
Yeah,
that pick. He had 9 total tackles, 4 solos, and that 1 interception.
nice. So, I mean, in totality, his experience and savviness give him a real chance to compete at the NFL level. I think he's going to be drafted probably somewhere in that third to fourth round range, probably with the initial idea of him being kind of a backup or third safety, maybe play some ST, nickel packages, that kind of thing. I think the issue here that you see is, or that's perceived, I should say, is that he's kind of at his ceiling and that he's athletically not quite as um, gifted as some of the other guys that we talked about. So again, when we're projecting, a guy who was very successful in college may not project to be quite as athletically gifted at the next level. And so that's where I think people see limitations. And certainly there are some of those on film, but I like to try and focus on a guy's strengths, and his strengths are very obvious. And I think
Yeah,
that's what's going to allow him to be a guy who can have some success in the NFL. Would not shock me if he's better than some of the guys who are going to be taken ahead of him, right? And there are some draft boards like I'm high on Jordan Battle compared to some people, and that's predominantly I think because I value what I see on film from him. I mean, the guy had 3 pick sixes that we saw just now, right? So
true.
you know, a guy who came to mind that was another guy that I think people underestimated athletically, but was very savvy, made a lot of plays for a lot of years, was a little bit vilified, I think, towards the end of his career. But Daniel Sorensen with the Chiefs, you know, for a long time anyway, and then signed with somebody else, I think maybe the Saints or the somebody like that a couple off seasons ago,
Mhm.
but had a pretty long career with the Chiefs and made a lot of plays. I mean, here he is against the Chargers on Monday Night Football a few years ago, down there in the slot,
Our guy
to
Phillip.
cover the running back. And you just understand spatial awareness. That looks a lot like that Kentucky or the Kansas State play, right?
Yeah,
Very similar to the play we saw Jordan Battle make versus K State. Just fall off, have the spatial awareness and understanding to find the football, and make the interception against Austin Eckler.
oh, look
Right,
who's right there, right next to him with
Matthew,
the
is
Stelly. Yeah,
that Tyron? Yeah,
yeah.
right. So I think Jordan Battle can have a similar kind of career success, and success with the team for some time. He's currently projected at somewhere around that third, fourth round. Saw some teams interested in him. Might be the Bengals, the Jets as a team that I came across. The Eagles again, they're back, and then the Rams, which again I would not be surprised or upset if the Rams, took this guy.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts, Joe?
I mean, I would say the Rams is nice. You know, you said they just lost Taylor Rapp. I think this is a good replacement, if not like some depth to have down there. The
Yeah.
Jets, I think, is also fun to see them pop up. They had a great defense last year. I feel like they'd be adding a great piece for more depth, if anything. You know.
Mhm.
But yeah. Did you want to get into our rankings?
Yes, I
All
do.
right, let's do it.
I
Did
was
you
just
want me to go, or did you want to
I was digesting what you were saying. I like it.
go?
I like it. Yeah, I'll let you go first on this one.
All right, so let me see. I gotta look at my notes. It's been a couple days since I made this list, so
Yeah, yeah,
bear
yeah.
with me. So the first guy I have ranked is Jamie Robinson out of Florida State.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, you could see he was a strong dude whenever he made those tackles. I mean, 23 reps on the bench easily proves the
Mhm.
point. I said he was relentless. To me, it was more like he wasn't afraid of getting hurt or like afraid to go make a play. I guess is what I was going with that.
Yeah.
He has good pursuit, and he doesn't give up on plays. He's always flowing to the ball. That's something you just can't coach. That's just the grind and effort.
Yeah.
Next guy I liked was Jordan Battle, the guy we just talked about out of Alabama. I think he's the best. I said it earlier. He's the best open field tackler of the group, and I
Yeah.
think he's the more true like safety type where he could actually cover routes as opposed to just like playing up. I don't know how you
Yeah.
feel about that. That's another reason. See, after that, Brian Branch, the guy on the other side of him. Let's see, where are my notes there? Just he's strong. 14 reps on bench isn't too bad at the safety
Yeah.
position. Like I said, he's a little bit smaller, probably playing more in that nickel position, but still good. See, Sidney Brown is the next guy I liked out of Illinois. He has a knack for finding the ball, but my issue was when they throw his way, he's not playing the ball. He's more trying to go for the legs, kind of
Mhm.
offsetting for me. And the
Okay.
last guy was Antonio Johnson, the guy with the most size on the group. I didn't like how he never really wrapped up when he made his tackles. That bothers me. And but that one thing he did have was a good attitude. He was always hyped, no matter what.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my
So what
ranking
I've
for him.
learned about Joe here is that you really highly value tackling, which is not a bad thing, and I commend you for it. Because that's a good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
so my list is a little different. I think mostly because of projection. Again, what dudes look like at the next level, what things can you coach, what things can you not coach, right? And trying to dictate or determine like where guys fit in the NFL, right? So
Mm,
I love Brian Branch just because I think he's so valuable at and multi-positional, right?
yeah.
So I think he brings so much value right away. I think that's where I've got him first. Um, Sidney Brown is my favorite pure safety in the draft. I think he's a baller. I think he's a playmaker. I think he's going to shock people with how many plays he's able to make at the next level. Antonio Johnson is third for me because of the size and the speed. Like those two things, you can't underestimate what that might mean at the next level. He's the guy in the group that has the most boom bust potential to me.
That makes sense.
Um, and so that's why he's kind of in the middle. Because I'm not really sure on him yet, but I can't. I mean, he's one of the bigger, faster safeties in this group, and that's why he's all the way up at third for me.
Yeah.
Number 4, I have Jamie Robinson, guy I saw in person, like I said, at the Senior Bowl, along with Sidney Brown, and both guys balled. Both I thought they were both really good players. Jamie Robinson, a little smaller player, just like Sidney Brown, but very tough, very physical. Like you said, pretty good tackler. And then at 5th, I have Jordan Battle, also a very good tackler, a little bit bigger, a little bit more athletically limited, but I could see him carving out a nice career for himself and playing above what people think his ceiling is. Some other guys that didn't quite make the list. This safety class, to be quite frank with you, is not deep. And in general, it's just not very good, unfortunately.
I mean, another
Um,
telling sign is just we only had like what two like first rounder dudes, and then from there it's just like middle of the
well,
draft.
actually, really only had one. I mean, Brian Branch is the only one who might be a first rounder, and then Antonio Johnson, his size and speed is projected in like round
The
2.
second, yeah,
Everyone else is like round 3 or later. So, I mean yeah, it's pretty telling. I'm not very high on this group in general. You probably hear it in my voice today when we were talking about some of these guys. I was trying, I
yeah,
with prospects, you focus on what they can do, right? And
yeah,
try really hard not to focus on what they can't do or
yeah.
what
That's where I
you
had trouble with this
where
group,
you
but
yeah, or what you think right now you're not seeing. And so because you never know, things can, like I said, it's all projection, right?
true.
But some other guys that just keep your eye on, guys who could pop, be probably late day 2, day 3 picks. Jair Brown from Penn State, JL Skinner from Boise State, Daniel Scott from Cal, Christopher Smith from Georgia, and then Jay Ward from LSU. The separation between like Jordan Battle and the rest of these guys not super high, quite frankly. They're all kind of clumped together. I really think I love Brian Branch and Sidney Brown, and after that, I think everything else is kind of a guessing game. Like 3 through 10, I'm not. It's kind of like corner where I love the top 2 guys, and then everywhere the rest of the way, it's like they're not quite as good as the top 2. But at corner, I think it's like, man, like that 11th guy, you're getting real value, right? Like 3 through
Yeah,
11 ish, 12 are all like equally as good, but they're all good. Like I think
yeah,
they're all
yeah,
good players. At safety, it's like, man, I like the top 2, and then everyone else, I'm kind of like, there's reasons to be hesitant on, I
yeah.
guess is what I would say. And so, looking at like what do they do well, right? You're having more trouble, I guess, is what we would say. So
Mhm.
it's not the best group of players this year. I would say safety and interior offensive line might be 2 of the worst groups that you kind of have to draft from this year, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah.
Um, so there may be more interior offensive linemen I like than safeties at this point. So it's a tough group. It's a tough group. I hate to be negative, but it is a
Yeah,
tough group. So we'll see though. I mean, there are reasons to be excited about each of the 5 guys we talked about today. I mean, we highlighted those things. So
yeah, true.
um, we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. Um, so we need to close this thing out with a banger of the week, dude.
Yeah, so we talked about it off camera a couple days ago how we wanted to branch out and like what we're given for these, right? So for
Yeah.
you, you're like, yeah, I want to look into more music, and for me, I was
Yeah.
like, I need to watch more TV or go watch a movie or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, excuse me. We talked about it kind of in the group chat where they wanted to go watch Air the other day, right on Sunday. Don't know if
Mm-hmm.
they did or didn't, but I went and watched it yesterday,
Okay.
and it's funny because my mom hit me up and was like, "Yo, have you seen Air? Like, it's
What'd you
really
think?
good." I
Yeah.
liked it. So, like, because she told me that, I was like, "Okay, I should go out and see it." It's just a
Hmm.
matter of when, right? So I went yesterday, and I didn't know what to expect. It's actually surprisingly pretty funny.
Okay.
Uh, that was one thing that, like, caught me off guard instantly is, like, they were just cracking jokes about any little thing.
Okay.
Chris Tucker's in there. I didn't know if you knew that. So
Hmm.
that's where it all starts originally in the beginning.
Nice.
One thing that was kinda interesting, you don't really hear Michael Jordan talk till the very end. I guess I don't know how that really played out in real life during the deal, but
Yeah.
that was interesting. And then when they unveil the shoe, it's just crazy. Just like you already know what it's supposed to look like, but just seeing it and like the mock-up that they draw over the time frame that they're like trying to sign them is crazy. But yeah, I liked it
That's
a lot,
sick.
really good. I'd say it's probably like a B plus to A minus, like
Yeah.
really high up there. And yeah, it was funny, caught me off guard. Thought that was cool.
Nice. Love it. Love it, bro. Um, Alright. I have not seen it,
Uh-huh.
but I intend to,
Yeah. No
especially
doubt.
after your review. Especially after your review, I intend to see it. So,
Yeah, do you got any questions? I know I always ask you questions whenever you talk about anything, like show or
well,
movie wise.
it's tough because I haven't seen it yet, so I'm trying not to, like, spoil it for myself.
Yeah, yeah. That's like another reason
I
why I
feel
was
like
trying to just be broad about what I was saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll have questions once I see it probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, you know it's gonna happen, it's just a matter of, like, how it plays out, you know? Like,
Yeah,
obviously, he's with Nike, we know that. He's got
yeah,
his own name on there, it's just all the little intricacies along the way.
yeah. Alright, bro. Well, we'll let Ray take us out, I guess, because 'cause we'll be hitting it back later with tight ends. Stay tuned.
Tight ends, yeah, that's gonna be fun.